This is Confessions of a Black Sheep, where we embrace being unapologetically different, uncover the power that comes with it, and share our personal wisdom through experience, vulnerability, and honesty.
I'm joined by my amazing co-host, Preetam, who is a life architect with a knack for turning chaos into clarity, your vision into your reality.
And of course, this is Simran, a Reiki master, yoga teacher, and an all-around guide for women stepping into their power.
So this episode will be a little different than our previous episodes, and it might be a little all over the place because it'll be a different kind of conversation between Preet and I. But as usual, we'll still be packing this space with a lot of value for you. So I hope you enjoy this little detour that we're taking. So what we want to share with you today is the wisdom and the experience that blossoms through conversations that require more heightened emotion and require access to deeper layers of ourselves that we are usually not open to or not even comfortable sharing with other people. So for context, so you understand and we're all on the same page. In the middle of recording the topic about self-love, the conversation in the moment was centered around how men and women individually can offer love to themselves. And something that arose in me as Preet was talking about how men can give love to themselves and offer true self-love, which was beautiful advice. And we will have a conversation about self-love probably in another episode because this is something that is really important for us to share. But in the directive that was being given to men, I felt a lot of rage come up in that moment. And it felt like a collective rage that wasn't from a single experience I've had, but there was flashes of conversations I've had with women throughout my life, whether it's women I've worked with, whether it's friendships, my sister, even my mother. And in that moment, when I felt this rage, and I wonder if like all the women listening can relate to this sensation of like when you get to a point where you're so angry and so frustrated and there's like this buildup of emotion and you intentionally bring chaos and destruction. Because it was a choice I made in the moment where I decided I'm going to challenge everything that's being said and I'm not going to do it kindly. And not that the choice was not that I'm not going to do it kindly, but the choice was I'm going to be chaotic about it. And the choice was I'm going to do it in a very stormy, tumultuous way. That led to what I would say was like a heated back and forth. I'm not even that heated. I think it could have become more heated, but I think Breathe does a really good job at like bringing calm, even though I really would have preferred to continue fighting. So I want to explain, if it's okay with you right now, the layers of what came up in that moment, because I would love actually to start a conversation with people in general about this rage that I did feel that was beyond my own. Is it all right with you if we get into that? And also, up until this point, is there anything that you would like to say or have to say and share?
And is there anything I would like to share about yesterday's moment? Yeah, it was an intense, instant change in energy during that moment from previous times. To see that shift was really, at the time, was really difficult because, as we spoke about it later, but what was being said, what I needed to say in return, I wasn't saying in return. What you wanted to hear wasn't being said in return. But then when we spoke about it afterwards, like later, I was like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I mean. Like, that is exactly what I mean. But in that moment where the emotions were so high, it was very difficult to literally any other word that I said or anything I said was just going to be met with, here we go, let's fight and let's go. So in that moment for me, it felt like the best thing to do was listen in the best way possible. And yeah, I didn't fight you back that much. I didn't feel like it was needed. And ultimately in that moment, the best thing to do was to create as much stillness, but a space where it can all be let out so I can hear you clearly. and listen to the message itself. However, it felt heavy on this side. However, I could also feel like it was heavier on your side. And that was something that I wanted to create a space for, where the emotion felt held and seen, because in that moment, that's what was the heaviest thing. For you, what happened? What was the process that you went through in that moment? Because it felt very intense, very quick.
So I felt, okay, the words I'm going to say may not make sense for the context, and I'm going to have to explain why these emotions were there. I felt disrespected, disregarded, unseen, unheard. And when I'm saying I as an individual did not feel this. And I think that for anyone listening who doesn't understand maybe like how my body functions, I do take on and feel and receive a lot of information from the world around me. And I've at this point in my life been able to distinguish what is my own to hold versus what am I being given to hold, and like what am I supposed to do with the thing I'm being offered. And it was more so like in a sense, like a download of intelligence. And it brought a lot of emotion initially. And the thing is, like, I have also felt these emotions. It's not like it's separate from me. I am part of a collective, and I am a woman who has felt all of the things I described: the disrespect, the disregard, the you're not listening to me, you're not seeing me, you're not understanding me, and you're not trying to. And I'd like to clarify that there's nothing that Preet did or said that made me feel like that. It was the things that was not being said about men. And it was the lack of directive. It was the lack of accountability that is required of men in many moments. So for some context, the overarching idea that was very frustrating, and I'm really interested to know how many other women feel this way. The whole context and idea of what initiated this rage was this process that I've watched a lot of men go through, and I've heard a lot of stories. A lot of the times that process is done in a way that is so disrespectful to the feminine, so disrespectful and disregarding of the women in that man's life. So I can give countless stories of women who have either been in relationships with a man who's done like a 360 and been like, I need to put myself first. And in the process of putting himself first, he throws out every woman who is not meeting his direct needs. A conversation that needs to be had and is really important for us to talk about is, yes, do better, improve all aspects of your life, love yourself. But a layer of loving yourself also as a man means that you're accepting the ways in which you've caused harm to the feminine. And this is to your own mother, to the earth, to your sisters, to any aspect of the feminine within yourself. Even disrespecting your own life. If you've tried to kill yourself, that's a disrespect to the feminine. That's a disrespect to the mother who birthed you. And there's so much depth to this that I didn't even understand until yesterday. So it's like me even trying to explain it, I'm having a hard time accessing everything that I would like to share, because I don't fully understand it yet, but I definitely want to start a conversation about it. The trigger that came up while Preet, you were talking yesterday, I thought about all of these men's coaches and like these men's leaders and these people leading these men's group, and how a lot of it's about embracing the masculine and opening up to your feminine. And there's a huge missing link that I have seen in a lot of these men's circles and the way that these men lead other men. And the missing link is you start with your mother. And that doesn't mean only the one who gave birth to you. I mean, you start with the earth, you start with the life you've been given, you start with aspects of God, you start with the parts of yourself you've completely rejected, not entirely because it's your fault, but because you've been conditioned to disrespect the feminine and to disregard it and think that it's lesser than. And the key is not let's open up to your masculine and go express your emotions and go scream in the forest and go beat shit up to let your rage out. but to first apologize, to first acknowledge, to first accept how many years have gone by with you bringing such disrespect and disregard to 50% of yourself, 50% of this universe. And healing doesn't happen unless you've healed women. And this doesn't mean you have to heal all the women in the world. This means start in your own life. And there's something that I constantly say, and this is a huge part of my business and my brand, my purpose, my mission, which is heal women, heal the world. If you are not healing the beginning of it all, which is a woman, you're missing so much. And that's where that rage came from.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing. I think it's super important, and it's interesting in the time, because during the moment there was no option to explain, share, or anything. And like, as an example, one of the first things I would have said in there would have been that I don't agree with the majority of men's work that's going on around the world. I don't think that that's the way forwards. I actually don't think it's acceptable at all. I think that the driving force behind them is wrong and toxic. There are men out there that are starting, there are groups that are starting to do the work in a more guided way, in a way that really allows them to heal their mother wounds massively. One thing I will say is that men themselves, as creatures, they are physical creatures. So for them to start the work, it starts differently. Now, that doesn't mean that the work's being done correctly. It needs to be completely redesigned. So men can take on both aspects at the same time and move forwards. And I completely agree that the mother wound is one of the key missing pieces. And moving forwards, that work that men need to do, that part of that accountability comes in that. And not part of the accountability, all of the accountability will come inside of that, especially as that work's done. And I don't think that it's missing from men's circle. It's just done completely wrong. If I could like scrap them all and start again, which I think we should, and changing the way that men build themselves up, and how important it is to focus on forgiveness, and focus on, forgiveness was the wrong word, focus on receiving forgiveness from the feminine, all of the layers of the feminine, whether it's all the different things that you mentioned. And it's going to take men a lot of courage, but it's completely necessary. And I'm going to make sure it happens, without a doubt.
Yeah, I think that it requires a full destruction of ego. And like, it's interesting because I hear more men than anything. I've never heard a woman talk about an ego death experience. Never in my life.
Oh, I have. Go to Bali.
Well, the women that I'm attracting, I've never met a woman who's talked about her ego death experience, but I have heard a lot of men speak on an ego death, and they say it through the conversation in a very ego-full way. And this is something that, like, and there's no blaming of men, and I really want the women listening and the men listening to know, like, we are not blaming men for who they are. They have been conditioned this way. Every single human being on this earth is a product of what we've created as a collective. And like, that has been a patriarchal society, a capitalistic society, a hyper-productive society, a society that puts a lot of pressure on men to appear a certain way in order to be accepted. The same with women, but we are offering grace, and also the grace can simultaneously be paired with intolerance and boundaries that women hold for themselves, where it's like, yes, I can see that you are trying as a man, but the standard for myself as a woman means that I can recognize this, I can be graceful, I can be forgiving, I can have an open heart and an open mind, and maybe it ends right there. And that's an act of self-love for women as well. And I think I'm going into a different topic now, but yeah, there's a lot that I think in the future we will definitely dive into. And it's interesting, Preet, when you, like, in the moment yesterday when I felt all of these emotions, and it was like this information just entered my physical body, and it was a lot. And I definitely brought a very emotional reaction forwards, and it took a solid like 6, 7, 8 hours to digest what had even happened and like what I was feeling and why I was feeling that and the greater picture behind all of it. And I would like everyone to know that I did apologize and I did take accountability and we talked it out.
Like, I think in the moment we were very open and honest. It was an intense moment, but it was a beautiful moment in the sense that what was being portrayed was a really important message for me to receive. And then simultaneously a boundary needed to be set from my side, like, let's speak friendly, like from both sides. And I think it was a beautiful moment to recognize how much growth has gone in as human beings for ourselves personally, to be able to move through something like that, but then also be able to feel it and then portray it and then give the messages as they come up. So I actually think it's one of the most funny that we were talking about self-love, but I think it's one of the most important parts of self-love. When something like that happens, what was your journey? As obviously we came to the end of the conversation, we had like an hour and a half, like just slowly coming back down from where we were. But then after that, what was your process and the importance of what you did to allow yourself to regulate back down?
It's interesting. I had a call right afterwards with a girl that I was mentoring, that I am mentoring. Went in honest because I was like crying 3 minutes before, and I was like, "Listen, this is what I've just gone through in the past hour. I want you to know, like, this space is here for you, but like, I got to talk about this real quick, and I would love to know your insights." And I actually wrote down something that she had said to me. So 2 things I wrote down that she had said. She said, men disregard women and think solely about themselves when they start taking care of themselves. And it's expected of women to be the nurturers, the caregivers, while they're still taking care of themselves. And it kind of like, it gave me a different perspective of the expectations we've held for men and women and how they are so different. And like, as much as I would love for the world to be equal and for the sexes to be equal, it's just not true. The expectations are completely skewed, and we can act like there's beautiful equality. There is not. It was nice to have a conversation just with another woman who understood immediately. Like, I didn't have to really explain the depths of things. Like, she got it and she was like, yeah, I know exactly what you mean, and thanks for putting it into words. And after that, I held some space for my dad for like an hour. I taught him pranayama techniques. And then after that, I started to take care of myself for the first time in like 3 hours. And I started by just sitting in the dark and silence and deep breathing. And this is a way that I digest information and experiences, is by just breathing in the dark. And I took a shower with intention. The intention in showers that I have when I'm having a really heavy day is that the water is just washing all of the excess heaviness off. I thought I wanted ice cream, but I realized I was seeking comfort. So I made myself extremely comfortable, and I had some warm tea, and I just prayed and journaled, and I ate a cookie, and I ended up just falling asleep while meditating. That's how I digested and processed afterwards. I did a lot of writing and like letting it out somewhere because I needed to let all of that. Like, I don't know if you're listening and you got downloads, then you'll be able to relate to this. But like, when downloads come, it's like, it has to go somewhere. Some of it went in a voice note to breathe, and some of it went into a document. Some of it went on notebooks and pages.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. I think that could be really valuable for people. And let's just clear that up, that last bit. When she said some of that came in a voice note, we're talking like 45 minutes worth of voice notes. Like, I think it was like 40 minutes worth of voice notes, which is all good. Like, I'm happy to receive them. Don't get me wrong. I really appreciate it.
That wasn't last night.
Oh, no, not like, well, in total, I'm happy to receive. I think that's really valuable for men and women. And when something is a lot or really emotional, when it comes down the download, or you're moving through a movement, and ultimately the way that we're portraying ourselves is through our emotions, because that is what is at the forefront in that time. To be able to take that time to process, sit with, is I believe one of the highest acts of self-love. To be able to take that time for yourself, that quality time with yourself in that moment. Because whenever I'm doing self-love, like the idea of self-love, does it feel like self-love in the moment? I guess there's times now where I'm like, oh my God, I love this. but I know the importance of what I need to fill up my own cup. Did it feel like this is essential to what I need? Because you've learned this now, haven't you? You've learned that this is what works for you, being able to take that time out. Did it feel like this is really important? I need this time now to just process.
Yeah, it was essential because what would have happened, let's say if I decided to have my client call, have a call with my dad, shower, eat ice cream, watch TV, go to sleep. I would have missed so much of the information I was meant to receive. I also would have felt like that's just not a good way to take care of myself. That would have been avoidance. That would have been, I don't want to face myself. I don't want to feel anything. I just want comfort and I want to like just relax versus like when that's just not relaxing. Like the most relaxing thing was for me to like really breathe through it and fall asleep thinking about it and feeling things. And then, yeah, and like that carried over to the morning. Like I had a very slow morning, woke up later than I usually do. I didn't make myself do like any aggressive movements or exercises. It's just the ability to slow down, be easeful, love yourself gently, knowing that you're feeling heavy, you're feeling a lot, you're going through many things. And don't give in to like the creature comforts that you're seeking and recognize that it is you're looking for comfort. And usually, actually, I had a conversation about this with my client yesterday about how food tells us, our food cravings tell us a lot about what our bodies are asking for. It's like 11 p.m. and I'm craving ice cream and I'm like, no, your body doesn't actually want ice cream. What does it want? And that's how I knew it wanted comfort. It makes a difference when you listen and just give it what it needs instead of giving it what it's craving.
Yeah, sometimes give it what it's craving.
Yeah, sometimes. I'm sure it would have been happy with ice cream still.
Yeah, I'm excited for my 2 scoops of ice cream.
Yeah, because the hotel I'm staying at has a fresh ice cream bar downstairs and they have like the most delicious flavors, but they make you buy 2 scoops instead of 1 and I can only eat 1.
I love that's what they do. I hope that there's an Indian dessert called ras malai. If you've never had one, try one. It's amazing. It's like, how do you explain it?
It's like this cakey substance that's soaked in this creamy, sugary, milky substance. It's like, and then they top it with pistachios and sometimes saffron. And like you take a bite and it's like juicy and milky and creamy. My favorite is actually frozen ras malai.
Frozen ras malai. That would be like very similar to like certain types of kulfi, right?
No, it's like ice cream cake. It's delicious. I mean, maybe the milk part is close to kulfi, but
I'll get some and freeze it and see what goes down.
Yeah, do that
when it happens. I wanted to ask, do you feel like what is the importance of, because this was a huge part of my own journey, recognizing the importance of being able to spend time alone, especially when something has happened or something big has happened. It's very easy in those moments. Like back in the day, I would have like, oh, it's been a shit day or something's happened. Let me go get shit-faced. Let me go, I'm English, like, let me go get drunk. Let's go to the pub. Let's get some drugs, whatever it is. And back in the day, that there was always a way to fill in that gap, or like, let's go on a date. Let's do this, like anything to kind of like fill that gap in. And it took a long time to eventually recognize the importance of being alone, being able to process, being able to sit in that space and hear everything and feel everything and process everything. And you spoke about the actual processing part. How important is being able to spend time alone and be comfortable with it for self-love?
It's like, I don't even think about it at this point. My habits were very similar to yours in the past, where I probably would have wanted to smoke weed or drink some alcohol or like call a friend and be like, just talking about the situation, or like seeking even like comfort in just a warm body. But I guess I didn't even think about it. Like, that's a great question, actually. The difference of if I had gone and seeked comfort with any of those habits we described versus taking time by myself, I probably would still be angry today. I probably wouldn't understand why I'm angry. I probably would have blamed you, even though you didn't do anything wrong. I would have projected. I would have come up with some silly story. The difference and the importance of spending time alone and going inwards when those intense things happen is you learn the truth of yourself. You see situations with clarity and you're actually able to take care of yourself. Otherwise, those emotions would just sit and fester in my body. And I probably would have just brought more chaos to the world around me. I could have easily, completely destroyed our friendship. I could have made every other podcast recording beyond this absolute hell. I could have done a lot to continue to bring more chaos and destruction. I could have just said the most mean things to you and talked shit about you. But like, none of that solves anything, right? That's just us running from ourselves and our problems. So like, the difference is face self, face truth, go inside, in silence, in stillness. And if you're not used to that, initially, it's going to hurt really badly. I mean, it still hurt badly yesterday, but I guess I'm just used to the fact that pain is inevitable, and like that's how you process and get wisdom and intelligence. So like, yeah, but it makes a world of a difference, and it changes who you are as a human being, changes everything truly.
Yeah, I agree with that so deeply. It's one of the things that completely transformed my journey. Was like my first Vipassana, and okay, cool, that's taking silence and being on your own to a whole different level. I actually did my first one at home, so 12 hours of meditation a day without seeing or speaking to another soul for 10 days in a row, and you only get 2 small meals of a bowl of brown rice with like sesame oil and salt. And yeah, really, really, really beautiful practice. And it really did shift a lot for me, especially as I was coming out of all of those habits and patterns of like all the things I would do to fill those gaps. And then this was a practice that I just suddenly did out of nowhere 3 months later. And yeah, it was super important. And I think that one of the things that we, after recording that episode, well, after recording a third of that episode, and then continuing to talk, and then wanting to hold this space for the listeners, one of the most important things for me was to be able to hold the space that I may have misunderstood yesterday, or I may have misunderstood when we recorded the episode. So, and being able to hold that space and allow whatever that space needs to be, and for it to come forwards however it needs to come forwards, and for you to take up whatever space you want to take up and you need to take up to be able to process it, and so I can understand it deeper, was really important. How have you felt recording this episode? Because this is nothing like what we would previously record, but also it's exactly honest, it's real, it's raw. How does it feel?
Initially, I had a lot of resistance to even sharing anything about my experience, but I recognize I've made a commitment to being raw, honest, vulnerable, and transparent in how I show up in the world. And so through this process, it's felt liberating. There's been moments where I have felt hesitation and resistance to say something just because I know that it's challenging so many people's beliefs and thought processes. I think that the situation itself and everything that transpired after that, and even in these moments now, I'm feeling myself change. I feel like I'm a completely different woman than I was before that recording, and before the hours I spent digesting it, before whatever information was passed through me. And even saying it now, I've said it and it's not so scary, and I'm going to keep saying it, and I'm going to keep expanding on what I'm talking about, and I hope it pisses people off. I want it to piss people off, because that means we're opening something up. And the same way that I felt rage and anger, and it opened me up to so much, I know that perhaps my existence in itself will bring rage and anger to others. And I'm not afraid of that, because it's necessary in order to transform. So I'm feeling like I'm ready to charge into a battlefield with my voice, and that's my weapon.
Yeah. No, I like that. I really do. You don't piss me off. You bring me peace.
Even in the moment where I'm like pissed off,
yeah,
and telling
yeah, because like in that moment, like I can own, like my job, my role is to hold space and understand. And I know in that moment I didn't do anything wrong, but I also know in that moment there was something to understand. But in that moment it was impossible to be able to understand, because what was coming at me was, it was like a war zone. And I was like, okay, cool, this is fine. Like, it's okay. Hold the space. Hold it in the most beautiful, strong, stable way possible. Because fighting in this moment is not like, there's no point getting swords out and like us like going backwards and forwards. Because obviously, if anyone knows Simran personally, or if you follow her, she believes she'll win everything. However, I've pulled back a little bit on the competitive edge, because we can let her feel like she wins, because she's not going to win everything. But in that moment, it was the war has begun. So the best thing to do right then was to hold space, and like it means so much to me because wasn't like this years ago. Like I was full of rage, I was full of emotions. I would fight, I'd attack. I'd not attack physically, but like I would attack as in like, okay, cool, you're coming at me, let's go. And what I would say wouldn't even come out well. It would just be like just rage, like unchanneled rage. So for me, the importance of being able to hold that space and for you to feel like you had the space to sit, channel, share your emotions, which you did. I feel privileged, and I feel privileged, and I feel honored, and that I can hold a space for you to be able to share everything from the rage, the anger, over to the emotions that followed, and for the wisdom that's come through since then. So I'm really grateful for that moment, and I'm really grateful for you as a human being. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for showing up today. I really appreciate that from you.
Of course. And I think that you do a beautiful job of holding space, and that I know you said like that is part of your job, like your role, and you do it well. And I think actually I want to point out there was the moment when I realized that I was maybe going too far is when you actually set a boundary and when you were like, you're speaking to me with disrespect, or you said something along those lines.
Yeah.
And I just stopped talking because I was like, I know anything that's going to come out of my mouth will be disrespectful, and it will continue to come out in this tone. And
Yeah. I saw the look on your face.
yeah, because it's interesting because in the past, I probably would have continued. I would have been like, I don't fucking care.
Yeah.
Like, so,
Yeah.
and then, but the difference, I think, in being two people who have, in a sense, mastered our emotions in most moments, and also have the ability to have external awareness with inner awareness. Like, we're able to feel what's happening in the body, but still show up and synthesize outside of the body. I think that it's a beautiful skill that everyone can have with time.
No, I agree, and I really do appreciate that, and appreciate all parts of the experience itself, because I think that being able to move through moments like that, being able to then take the time out to process, to understand, to share the message forwards, requires so much emotional maturity and self-awareness, and then the ability to communicate is what leads to that growth. So for me, now I look at it, I'm like, oh my God, it was super valuable. And I'm so excited for the seeds that have been planted and how we're going to water them together. Um, and then at the same time, like yesterday, it was just like, okay, cool, like just hold space. And even if you came with rage, like more rage, and you kept coming, even after I set the boundary, I'd be like, okay, cool, hold space, because it's so easy. And like me in the past, react, let's go, like you're coming at me, let's go. And ultimately nothing comes from that situation ever. To have like two people like really thrashing it out without being able to understand what's going on between you both. So I'm seriously grateful for that. If you had to give one piece of advice, as in the most important thing off the back of everything that's happened in the last sort of since we recorded and now, what would that be? What would that be?
The advice I would give is when it's coming up, let it come out. In many moments, I have found when human beings will have a surge of emotion or a surge of something going through their body, and they suppress it, they push it down. They don't want to be an inconvenience. They don't want to be disruptive. They don't want to change the course of something. In those moments when either a lot of emotion or something is surging through you, it's cracking you open, it'll open you up to something. It's meant to be transformative. It's meant to be disruptive. It's meant to change something. So let it change yourself, the people around you, the circumstance, the situation, the environment, whether it's in your workplace, in your relationship, in your home life, within yourself, whatever it is. Stop being afraid to be disruptive. Stop being afraid to challenge whatever the situation is. Stop being afraid to require yourself to be the center of attention for a moment, and require people to pay attention to what it is that your body, your spirit is asking and demanding. And that's my advice.
No, I love that. And thank you so much for sharing. I think it's super important. And I think my main piece, can I give my main piece of advice? Is that okay?
Of course.
Yeah, okay, cool. Just check. My main piece of advice when it comes to the idea of self-love, yes, but more so if things are feeling uncomfortable, you're feeling like you're not centered or something is coming up and it needs sitting with. Yes, we spoke about spending time alone. Yes, we spoke about stillness. Yes, we spoke about not filling those gaps. However, I think one of the most important things that I think and I believe, and it's shared in the media in a really cheesy way, but fill up your own cup so it's overfilling. So when you have to process it, when you have to sit with things, your battery is full. Don't allow your battery to fall deeply or feel empty whilst you're trying to process something. Really allow yourself to fill that up and then go and take up all the space that you need to with whatever is going on or however you need to release it. And because when you go to fill yourself up, allow yourself to overfill yourself. Fill yourself so much that when you give to other people, when you give to other situations, that when it comes back to you, your battery is still full. And that will really allow you to thrive in situations when things are heavy, when things feel like they're too much. Really constantly focus on filling up your own cup. And I think that by allowing that to completely fill up and allowing that battery to be full, you will do incredible things and you'll be able to process the heavy things really, really well. I think that this is a good place for us to wrap this one up.
Yeah,
What do
I
you
agree.
think?
Beautiful advice. I think we've done great. I would love to hear feedback about this particular episode because I know it was very different than what we usually do. So if you made it this far, thank you for listening. And we'd love to receive feedback at Confessions of a Black Sheep on Instagram. Confessions of a Black Sheep _ on Instagram. And yeah, we will talk to you there and see you in the next episode.
Yeah, we'll see you guys soon. Thank you so much.